We all look for different things in a video game, whether that's an engaging story, unique mechanics, well-developed characters, or a relaxing atmosphere. Then again, some also want to test themselves, taking on the most challenging endeavors and dying repeatedly. It may seem like torture to those on the outside looking in, but overcoming these is the real reward. The question is, which titles from 2024 provided that feeling of unrelenting difficulty? Well, as it turns out, quite a few. So check out 15 brutally difficult games from this year. Stalker 2: Heart of Chornobyl. GSC Game World's sequel isn't a particularly challenging survival experience when managing hunger and radiation. However, patience and endurance are key, whether deducing and diffusing anomalies, surviving encounters with mutants, or managing your inventory and dealing with the encumbrance. Doing all of this without any fast travel is just the cherry on top. Lethality of firearms also goes both ways, ensuring each gunfight could be fatal without proper preparation. Elden Ring: Shadow of the Erdtree. The hardest of the hardcore eventually settled into the expansion to where they could comfortably finish it with insane conditions. Launch was a completely different story, with the Land of Shadow mercilessly beating even the most experienced players with endgame builds. Such was the backlash against the difficulty that it even prompted some review bombing on Steam. Regardless of which side you fall on, there's no denying that Shadow of the Erdtree posed some incredibly challenging encounters, whether you took a wrong turn at Jagged Peak or accepted death at the hands of a fated consort. Black Myth Wukong. As approachable as Game Science's action RPG can be, mastering the nuances of combat, including what you can and can't animation cancel out of, takes some getting used to. When finally going up against some of the toughest bosses, it can become an exercise in frustration, especially when learning their patterns and the right times to dodge. Dragon's Dogma 2. Dragon's Dogma 2 may be an open-world action RPG, but various elements feel like an antithesis to other titles. Fast travel can be challenging, especially in the early going, and despite the destructive power of many vocations, fights against the toughest monsters are no joke. Even just walking around in the world is perilous due to random monster attacks. Once you become familiar with its various nuances, exploration is the best, but it's an out-and-out nightmare at the start. Warhammer 40K Space Marine 2. If you've played Space Marine 2 at launch and engaged with ruthless difficulty, especially solo, it can feel daunting, if not impossible. Saber Interactive has made several changes since then and even added a new difficulty to operations in Lethal, which had to be toned down. Nevertheless, the latter is still one of the most unforgiving challenges this year, with reduced armor and ammo drops, enraged Majora's foes, and higher respawn times. It's a rush, for sure, but one wrong move and you're done.
Kill zone!
Deathbound. Souls-like games are oftentimes more difficult than not, but Deathbound can take this to annoying levels. Your health and stamina are intertwined, so losing too much of the former means not having enough of the latter, which means less dodging and blocking. Having to switch between and manage 4 different characters also gets incredibly frustrating. Like a Dragon: Infinite Wealth. Like most RPGs, completing side quests and properly gearing up will ensure that your Infinite Wealth playthrough goes swimmingly. Skip all of that content while sticking to the main story and you'll suddenly find enemies stomping Ichiban and friends into next week. Of course, there's also Legend difficulty and New Game Plus. Tackling both means your party must be at least level 75 to even stand a chance. Sons of the Forest. Sons of the Forest offers an extensive amount of tools for fans of the first game to really cut loose, but it's not without some challenges. One wrong misstep or death can lead to a significant loss in progress, and things get even more harrowing in hard mode. Enemies take much more damage and dish it out willingly, which means armor is a must at all times. Coupled with the unpredictability of the AI, it's very easy to get overwhelmed. The Outlast Trials. Unlike its single-player titles, The Outlast Trials requires constantly evading killers while juggling different mechanics in a co-op setting. Die, and it's effectively the end of the match. Things become faster paced with friends, which is the point, but you still need to deal with rampant inmates while cooperating on various objectives, and that's before throwing in different modifiers, which makes things even more challenging. Silent Hill 2 Remake. If you're playing on the default difficulty or adjusting the challenge of puzzles and combat, Silent Hill 2 Remake may not seem all that demanding. Set it to hard, however, and harrowing locations like Toluca Prison and the Labyrinth become outright terrifying, with enemies becoming much more aggressive and challenging to take down. It's a lot to manage, especially when you're running back and forth and don't know the solutions to puzzles. No rest for the wicked. Moon Studios' isometric action RPG has seen its share of changes since entering early access, but make no mistake, it's still incredibly punishing. You have to be on point with your dodging and parrying, while the stamina cost of attacking feels way too excessive at times. Couple this with enemies hitting very hard and dealing with the annoying camera, and No Rest for the Wicked often feels more stressful than it should. Erdtree: The Last Song. If Erdtree's aesthetics don't draw you in, then the difficulty might do it. Parrying is the main mode of mitigating damage, and of course, it's not easy. With how some weapons can feel painful to use and the uneven difficulty of some foes, it will test even the most dedicated Souls-like fans' patience. Contra: Operation Galuga. Say what you will about Contra: Operation Galuga and how it feels short despite the price, but the one thing it nails is the difficulty. Similar to the older games in the series, you need to learn the ins and outs of stages and avoid damage as much as possible to succeed. It is easier said than done, but it never feels unfair and pushes you to improve. Expeditions: A Mud Runner Game. Saber's follow-up to the Mud Runner franchise ventures to large environments, which you must chart as part of an expedition team. What this means is having to haul your vehicles through all kinds of rough terrain, which means scaling cliffs and getting trapped in water. And whether you have the tools to circumvent that is another matter entirely. Some missions can take an hour, even for those versed in previous titles, but they feel massively rewarding afterwards. Frostpunk 2. Due to the scale and complexity of Frostpunk 2 over the original, there's a lot more to manage, and, more importantly, much more that can go wrong. The highest difficulty, Captain, exploits this fully with issues arising constantly, whether it's how long whiteouts last or dealing with riots and the like. Passing laws is also much more challenging, and if you don't carefully manage everything without mistakes, the city will fall before you know it.
And that'll be about it for this one. If you guys like what we're doing at GamingBolt, please consider subscribing to our channel, and I'll see you guys on the next video.